I want to thank you for spending time today with me and other members of our leadership team here at UVU. Thank you also for submitting questions ahead of time. It's been great since June 8 to see the first wave of staff returning to campus. As you know, we've always been open through COVID-19, but we started the first round of return after the governor put us in yellow here in the state of Utah. So I want to thank everyone who's returned. It's been great to see people taking their UVU-issued masks and wearing these around campus. And today I noticed more cars than I have seen in the last 3 months. So thank you for coming back. My cabinet also had an offsite yesterday and today, and what was interesting about this offsite was that we returned to UVU Vision 2030. The pandemic certainly has brought so many changes that we didn't anticipate, but what's reassuring is to know that the goals and the strategic initiatives that we outlined and articulated in the first year of my presidency, that we are still persuaded that these are the right initiatives, and therefore we will stay focused on this. Of course, with COVID-19, we have had the element of safety, which is very big as a focus for all of us to balance this element of safety with our core goal of providing a meaningful and effective educational experience for all of our students. I also want to thank everyone for the flexibility and creativity they have shown as we've adjusted to many different things. In the coming months, we will see more adjustments, including with graduation. The commencement date is the same, it's August 19, but the modality may be slightly different, and we'll be announcing details of that shortly. We may also see changes with freshman convocation and with fall schedule for the academic semester. We know that we will be delivering face-to-face, synchronous live streams, online asynchronous, and hybrid modalities of education for our students. And finally, we're thinking now, it's still a little far away, it's October, the scholarship ball. Stay tuned for announcements on how we will be doing these things with great zest and energy and flexibility as we adjust to the changing circumstances of the pandemic. I have with me here in the studio, and by the way, I just want to thank our studio team. This is always a big lift for them. I want to thank them for their very effective and efficient support of the town halls that we've had. So in the studio, I have Robin Ebb Meyer from our full title, Robin, just tell me.
I'm the Director of Emergency Management and Safety.
Director of Emergency Management and Safety. And honestly, I knew Robin's title because, we kind of meet every single day.
Every day.
But we have Robin here just to give us a quick update on the state of COVID in Utah County and in the state of Utah. Over to you, Robin.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm very grateful to be here to do this. I know I get a lot of questions about, is it safe to be on campus? Especially as we're starting to phase employees to coming back to campus, that becomes a much more popular question. Will I be safe? Am I safe? What's it going to be like when I get there? So I want to talk about a couple of slides here. And to start off with, I guess what's important is that it may be disconcerting or unsettling for people to see that number, that daily positive case number. And it can be unsettling, but what I'd like to share for the next few minutes are a couple of other data points. We look at many data points, but I want to highlight a couple for you this afternoon to just show you that there are some other things that we look at, not just the daily count. So this first slide is what we call the transmission rate. The transmission rate is when one person is ill, how many people do they infect? And we would like that number to be below 1. So right now you can see on this slide that our transmission rate is 1.01. We're just above 1, which means if I get sick, I give it to at least one other person. So what we'd like to see that line, and you can see it's kind of decreasing as it goes down. We'd like to see it below 1, and we are so close to doing that. So that's an important data point to recognize. And we're doing okay. Now, if you look at us in comparison with the entire United States, there are 7 states that have higher transmission rates than we do, and the rest are below us. So there's a big chunk of the U.S. states that are below 1. New York currently is the lowest transmission state. Which is interesting, but they've had their peak and they've come down. We have been behind many other states in our case rates. So this isn't a surprising number, and we are headed in the right direction. The next one I want to show you, and this is an important data point, and this shows visits to outpatient clinics and visits to the emergency department. So that orange or red line that you see there, each dot represents the end of a week. So it's not by day, it's by week. And you can see how in kind of that late March, early April, we had a real spike in emergency department visits. The blue line are visits to outpatient clinics. So you can see over time, we've dropped, and kind of leveled out right now. Why that's important for us to know and to look at is because this kind of shows the community anticipating where they need to go for care. And the other point is that we're not overwhelming our hospital systems. We're not overwhelming the ERs. We're not overwhelming our clinics. So that's an important piece of information that we also look at. The next slide is what we call the epi curve. This is an important slide because it takes us away from looking at the daily count, which kind of is fearful for some people, and it starts averaging. So each one of those dots is an average of 3 days. The line kind of flattens that out. So each of the colored bars means a different thing. The orange bar that you see is an increase in incidence. The yellow is a plateau of incidence, and a blue is a decrease in incidence. So you can see for quite a while we were doing kind of flat, which was what we wanted. And you can see very shortly after May 18th, which was the day that most of Utah went from orange to yellow. We knew this number would jump up. It did exactly what we thought it would do. But you can see over the last several days and weeks that we did go up, and we've kind of flattened out. And that slide is as of yesterday. I just looked at today's slide on this, and the next bar is also yellow. So we're in a plateau phase right now, which is good. We don't want to have that growth. But it is also too early to say, are we going to start going down? Are we going to keep going flat? Or are we going to go back up? We just don't know the answer to that. But this is an important graph for us to look at. It helps, for me, it helps take away that anxiety of what is the daily count every day. So let's talk about Utah County specifically. I literally sent these slides in this morning, and they changed because that's part of the dynamic environment that we are in. Every day you wake up and say, what's going to happen today and how are we going to deal with it? And this is one of those. The hospitalization rates, meaning those people who are hospitalized because the COVID virus is bad enough that they need extra support, we're doing very well in Utah County. We're doing very well in Utah. But we're definitely doing well in Utah County. The number of positive testing, and this is the number that changed today. So the range for the last 2 weeks or even longer have been somewhere between 33 to 59 positive cases in Utah County. That number changed today to a high of 65. We actually had 65 people who tested positive in Utah County. Now, that may be concerning, but again, you've got to see several days over time for that to be concerning. So that is the highest we've tested in this whole time. But again, remember that there are other data points that we're looking at. Remember the hospitalization. The other piece of important information is that our mortality rate has been dropping. Right now, I put this slide up. I looked at it yesterday. It was 1%. As of today, it is less than 1%, just less than 1% is our mortality rate. And that's the number of people who actually die after they get this virus. So we like that number a lot to go down, and it is going down. This last slide for me is where, the numbers can be unsettling. It can drive fear in us. It can cause us to do things we might not normally do. It makes us feel out of control. And that's the part I want to leave with you today, is there are things we can do to feel in control again. And there's nothing new on this slide, especially on the left-hand side, the precautions. I call this the pandemic big five. You've been told these over and over, but what I think might be important to look at are why. Why do we stay home when we're sick, and what is the outcome? And each one of these precautions reduces our risk. But more importantly, I think it is that it gives us control. I have a little tiny bit of control in my life if I'm governing my ability to do these precautions. I'm sick, I'm going to stay home. Why do I stay home? So I don't infect that one other person wherever I'm going, whether it's at home or at work or the grocery store. I'm going to stay home. I'm not going to infect another person. I'm going to help be a part of bringing that number down. Social distancing. This helps both me and the people I'm around. Decreases the risk in actually passing that virus. Wearing a mask. We have learned so much about that over time. Wearing a mask really is respectful for the people I work with, the people I'm around. It shows that I care about them. And so that becomes a thing I can control. And the outcome is I'm helping the people around me. The wash your hands and don't touch your face. I have absolute control over my ability to wash my own hands and not touch my face. I've become very acutely aware of how much I touch my face and have gotten much better at it over time. Those are things we absolutely have control of, and the outcome for washing hands and don't touch your face is the only way for that virus to get into my body and actually cause trouble is by entering my eyes, my nose, or my mouth. If I learn to not touch my face and wash my hands frequently, then I'm not going to introduce that virus into my body. All 5 of those are important. I feel like they give us control back, a little bit of an environment that feel like maybe we've lost a little bit of control of. We have control over those 5. And each one of those lessens the chance, reduces the risk of us getting the virus and passing the virus. So ending back at that first slide, the transmission rate, all of those help us decrease that transmission rate, which brings this virus in our community under control.
Thank you, Robin. I want to say personally how grateful I am to Robin tracking data and information, and I think her message about what's under our control is really, really important. This is both a technical and a human adaptation issue, and I think that as we focus on these things that are under our control, not only will we feel better, but we're also able to contribute to preventing the virus from spreading. So thank you, Robin. Shifting gears a little bit, I'd like to invite Vice President Kyle Reyes to join me here in the studio. We have, this has been a difficult time. It's not just the pandemic, but as all of us are aware, in the last few weeks, also difficulty related to racial tensions, and in particular after the killing of George Floyd, we have seen many things and experienced grief or listened to people, to their pain and suffering, and have had to face, the problems in our community, in our country, with our Black African American brothers and sisters. This month is also Diversity Month. And so in this larger theme of inclusion and diversity, welcoming one another, showing exceptional care for one another, I'm going to have a brief conversation here with Kyle. But on Pride Month, I want to say that, like many people, I welcome very much the Supreme Court landmark ruling this month that extends civil rights law protection to gay and transgender workers. So they are protected from workplace discrimination. And this is something actually the state of Utah leads already. So it's wonderful to see the Supreme Court take the stance that it did on this matter. So quickly, I will just say a few things on what we have been doing here at the university in terms of discussing race and tensions and how to understand anti-racism. We, as many of you know, the cabinet sent out a letter. We got responses to that after the killing of George Floyd. The university also signed on to a Black Lives Matter ad that was taken out by many companies and organizations in both the Deseret News and the Salt Lake Tribune. In addition, 2 weeks running now, we've had a Let's Talk dialogue where all members of the UVU community have been invited to participate. And our Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer, Dr. Belinda Otucolo-Saltiban, would have been with us today, but she's had to attend to a family matter in Hawaii, so we excuse her. And Kyle, I'm very grateful that you're here. Let me just turn to you now to describe some of the things that we are talking about here on campus and the things that we are doing.
Thank you, President. And let me just echo the President's comments there in terms of just how seriously we have had conversations about diversity, inclusion, racial justice, and the heaviness that is on everyone's hearts right now regarding not only George Floyd, but Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and others. We have been having conversations, and when I say we, a number of us in different venues, different administrators with different departments, Dr. Belinda Otucolo-Saltiban, Dara Snow, our Multicultural Student Services Director, myself, our Black Student Union leadership, and a number of other committed employees in terms of faculty and staff who would like to support our BSU students and other student groups that might feel a bit marginalized. We've been talking about a number of things that we could be doing and are going to go to work on a number of those issues. Let me provide a few updates on things that are landing right now. Today, just today, it's been posted, a new full-time program director for what's called our African Diaspora Initiative. Now, for those that aren't familiar with the term diaspora, let me just let you know that diaspora is a term that refers to any origins of people that might have traveled and their origin is from a specific region of the world. There's a Pacific Islander diaspora, but the African diaspora refers to anybody who might have ancestors, right, from African continent. And so rather than calling it a Black African initiative, we've referred this to our African Diaspora Initiative, or any of our students, serving our students that come from the African diaspora. That is housed in our Multicultural Student Services Center. And just like our Latino Initiative, LGBT Student Services, our Native American Initiative, Pacific Islander Initiative. And so today, it's posted in HR on our website, the program director for the African Diaspora Initiative, who will work closely with our student groups, work closely to advance a number of key initiatives that we'd like to move forward. We just recently, on Monday, had a conversation with directors and leadership within our police academy here at UVU and our criminal justice program. And I want to thank them for the conversation we held, and just letting them know and that the campus know we're going to continue those conversations with our African Diaspora group and committee, along with the Police Academy and our criminal justice program, to address issues that have been brought up recently. We supported our Black Student Union. They co-sponsored a candlelight vigil in Provo recently, and a number of our officers were there, and we wanted to support our BSU students and had over 1,000 people in the community attend that. And then this Friday, I just want to draw attention to an event that's taking place. June 19th is not a date that has been celebrated or commemorated as much as Martin Luther King or necessarily part of Black History Month in February, but it's a significant date. June 19th, 1865 signaled the end of, or the implementation of the Emancipation Proclamation, when the Confederacy surrendered at Appomattox. Basically, the Union leadership traveled to Galveston, Texas, and told slaves in Galveston, Texas, that they were now emancipated, and it was signified the liberation or freedom or end of slavery. This day, June 19th, or otherwise known as Juneteenth, is also known as Juneteenth Independence Day, Freedom Day, or Emancipation Day. And this Friday, June 19th, we are joining with our Black Student Union at 1 o'clock in the parking lot right between the UCAS building and the School of Education building. And we're just going to listen to a number of our students, a number of other of our community members and leaders and just have a conversation about the commemoration and celebration of this Emancipation Day. Following that, those that would like to are welcome to also then go to Salt Lake for a larger gathering at the state level. I also just want to say, President, Dr. Otukolo Saltaban is attending to a family issue right now, and I've been on the phone with her every day for the past 3 weeks. And the things that we're talking about, it's not that we are just wanting to do something now. Yeah. We have been working on inclusion and diversity related issues for a number of years. And I'll be the first to admit, and so will Belinda, that there is much work to be done. But in terms of inclusion work, she has led the development of our Inclusion Plan 2.0 that you can find on our website, uvu.edu/inclusion. If you click there and you go to data and reports, you can actually see the Inclusion Plan 2.0 that we've set out for the next 4 years. And that outlines over 70 action steps that we would like to take and invest in over the next number of years. In addition to that, we've had a number of people on the call, on these Real Talk. Yes. I want to thank Doc Woods, Ben Bailey, Dara Snow, and Belinda.
Over 100 participants the first time.
We had almost 200 the first time, and the second time over 150. And let me just highlight a few themes that came from those conversations that we're talking about and trying to address. So a number of the themes that came out from those conversations, and again, thank you to those facilitating. These weren't all the themes, but a few. Black, Indigenous, and people of color expressing being tired and frustrated with the slow pace of social change and commitment to diversity and equity. Calls for more representation of people of color in all levels of the institution and throughout leadership in the community. Invitation for the entire campus community to get more educated about and engaged with issues of racial injustice. And so with that, there were also questions. A lot of folks were asking, how can I get more educated? How can I get more engaged? How can I be a part of the solutions moving forward? And we'll just let you know that part of the Inclusion Plan 2.0 is the continuation of Foundations of Inclusion workshop series. There's also within the faculty side of the house, if you will, with OTL, there's a number of workshops for global and intercultural understanding and inclusive pedagogy. But feel free to reach out to Belinda or myself, and we can direct you to a series of resources, readings, TED Talks, and other resources. But I also know Dara Snow in the Multicultural Student Services Office has been compiling a list of resources and even a library so that our campus community can become more culturally competent, anti-racist, and aware.
Thank you, Kyle. I want to emphasize that this is, like you said, this is not new for us. We're building on a fairly strong foundation. In fact, inclusion and diversity was a really key reason as to why I came to UVU. And we are driving change in conversation, change in values, and change in behavior. And that takes a lot of work, and it is all our work together. There are two questions here from the questions submitted that are related to inclusion and diversity. And I want to pose this to you right now, Kyle. First, what do UVU's race demographics look like?
Sure, thank you. Let me just refer to and make sure I've got the data correct here. Often I can refer to these, but I want to get very specific. In terms of the demographics, this is self-identified, and these categories I'm about to read are the official U.S. Department of Education categories. And so African American, 300, this is our student population, 344 or 0.8%. American Indian, 174 or 0.4%. Asian, 554 or 1.3%. Hispanic, 4,911 or 11.8%. Pacific Islander Native Hawaiian, 249 or 0.6%. Those that are non-resident, 585 or 1.4%. And then this category, it's really interesting. If you track the last 10 years, this particular category called multiracial, otherwise known as two or more races, has grown from about 380 a decade ago to 1,492. This is happening in all higher institutions. And what's tricky about this is we don't know exactly, well, I will say this, when somebody self-identifies as Hispanic or African American, Hispanic and African American and white, they're counted very specifically on how they select the indications here, just like on the census. Unknown, 385, and then white, 33,034 or 79.2%. The other thing I'll say about this is in 2010, our total population of students of color was just under 10%. And now we're close to 20% on that. So just in the past decade, we've doubled in terms of our number of students of color.
And that's slightly higher than the people of color in the population of our service region. There's another question here. Does UVU offer any scholarships to people of minority races, including Black people?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have a number of scholarships offered through our various departments, like our Multicultural Student Services area. Legally, scholarships are not allowed to be designated for one particular race only, but we can offer scholarships through specific initiatives, those that work with our Latino initiative, those that have engaged with our Pacific Islander initiative and our Hispanic, our Latino initiative. And so those scholarships are available. It's online within our MSS office, Multicultural Student Services, just as we have scholarships with our tied to our Women's Success Center and other places like that.
And veterans and so on. Couple more questions for Student Affairs.
Sure.
How much is fall enrollment down?
Well, I don't know when this question was asked, but it changes by the day. And let me just say, we're on a positive trajectory. So it wasn't too long ago that we were down about 2,000 students from this time last year. The report I just received this morning was that we're down, let me just make sure I'm correct here. This time last year, about 69 days from the first day of school, we're down 748 students head count. And that translates to about 307 students FTE. And what's significant about that is just in the past 5 days, we've grown about 3%. And part of that, and we talked about this before, is that students, as we get clear as a university about what is offered in the fall, our students are starting to say, okay, now that I know what you're offering, I can sign up and with more confidence. And even then, down 748, we haven't even ramped up some of the aggressive phone calls that we're about to launch right now. We're about to launch some social media campaigns because we're gaining more clarity within our academic affairs side in terms of the classes offered, both face-to-face and online. We are launching our social media. When that social media hits, if you see that, we invite you to share that on your platforms. Yeah. Our network can multiply with your help.
Our message is that we don't want our students to lose their momentum.
Yeah.
And there is help. So this last question to you is, moving forward, what are some resources we can refer students to in terms of COVID-19 relief, financial help, and academic help?
Yeah, thank you. Academic help, I'll just say you can continue to email academic continuity at uvu.edu, and I believe Provost Vaught can also mention something about this with academic help. In terms of COVID-related financial help and other basic needs and securities, I just want to announce, many of you have heard about the CARES Act funding and some of the federal support that we've received, and UVU received the largest amount of public institutions in the state of Utah, the largest amount to allocate. As of today, we've allocated more than $7.5 million to our students, and that's pretty significant. We have not necessarily questioned them and interrogated. We have simply said, if you have a need and you can submit that application to us or acknowledge that, in order to receive it, you need to be Title IV eligible, which is basically FAFSA eligible. That doesn't mean you had to receive the Pell Grant, but simply be eligible. And that application, by the way, is still available. And so if you go to our financial aid website, there's a CARES Act tab there. Please pass that information on to our students. We are continuing to get that information to our students, but we have more money to allocate from the CARES Act. In addition to that, we had, before CARES Act, UVU's CARES Task Force, our coordinated access to resources and education, led by Alexis Palmer and a number of other dedicated individuals. We have a fund set aside for emergency funding, anywhere from $50 to $300, in some cases even more than that. So we encourage you to go to uvu.edu/studentcare. Again, uvu.edu/studentcare. And then finally, I know it wasn't part of the question itself, but I do want to remind all of our employees that in terms of mental health and in terms of support for our students who are still navigating with us, right, these uncertain times, we have been able to really serve through teletherapy through our student health services. And so I would invite you to refer students to our student health services. We're able to reduce those wait lists and time to see the students. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle, for all the very useful information. We could probably sit here and talk about student affairs for another 2 hours, but we did get 53 questions from you, so we're going to try to get through a few more of those. Please join me in thanking Vice President Kyle Reyes And I'll invite Vice President Linda Macon to join me now. Linda is Vice President of Planning, Budget, and Human Resources, and there are quite a few questions related to these subjects. So, Linda, if you don't mind, welcome. I'm just going to fire away because there are many questions for you. When will departmental budgeting decisions, PBA, for the next fiscal year be finalized?
So as we announced and UV announced last week, PBA decisions are final. They're posted on the website. You can find them at uvu.edu/PBA. Just a reminder, as we talked about last month, the legislature did not provide any new tax funds to us. Therefore, all of the allocations had to come from some tuition and from internal reallocation.
Thank you. Are we going to get merit pay for the new fiscal year, which begins July 1st?
Right. So assuming that we're talking about what begins July 1st, as I noted, we didn't get any new additional tax funds for compensation. So we had to use our tuition increase revenue and reallocations internally to cover our medical benefits changes and the $300 increase to all full-time employees. So unfortunately, we don't have money this year for merit pay.
This is pretty much true across many sectors and many organizations today. So we are able to keep our jobs, but unfortunately not able to offer merit pay for the coming year. If there is a second wave of COVID-19 and everything shuts down again, will there be layoffs?
Layoffs seem to be a common question. My hope is that Utah and UVU, as we reopen, that we'll individually and collectively follow the health guidelines that Robin outlined earlier for us. And if we can do that, hopefully the state won't have to issue more closures of any kind. Another shutdown will not necessarily mean layoffs. We have laid off since our last shutdown. We furloughed 132 employees and laid off 13. Many of these employees worked in areas that are not scheduled to reopen for many more months, given the health guidelines for their specific area, like the We Care Center or the Nordic Theater.
Have some of those who have been furloughed returned to campus?
Yes, that's my understanding that some have.
So our hope, of course, is that the economic recovery will be faster rather than slower, and that we can bring back those who have been furloughed to their jobs on campus. Students have been surveyed, faculty have been surveyed, but staff have not. Why do staff seem to not have a voice in how we are returning to campus?
Great question. UVU's fall class schedule was set up and announced, and students started registering even as COVID was just hitting the campus. So Academic Affairs has been working very hard to try to put together, well, they had to address summer first and now fall. And so they've had to engage with faculty and with department chairs. They've surveyed students to understand students' expectations, also that they could make sure that we have a fall class schedule ready to serve their needs come this fall. As far as staff voice within my division, our leadership teams talked a lot about our return to work plan, and they talked with their folks, and as we've been implementing it, we continue to have conversation, and I believe similar conversations have happened in other areas of campus. I also understand that PACE will be sending out a staff survey this week.
I think it's really important to let your voice be heard, let all our voices be heard. And so as Linda noted, some of these have occurred in specific departments and divisions, but I welcome the survey that PACE may soon be doing. So please do know that you have a voice and there's no negative intent here that staff is being neglected. The next few questions are a little longish, but please bear with me, Linda. What is the expectation for full-time staff returning to full-time work on campus? At first, it seemed like we were expected to return to campus full-time after our return date, but then HR released additional information about potentially extending remote work or working partially from home. How long are staff able to continue working at least partially from home?
So beginning June 8th, the university started to reopen most of its facilities. And that reopening required some staff to return to work beginning June 8th. so that our services could be available. Each executive, like I described, has worked with their teams to develop a return to work plan. And so within those plans, supervisors have the flexibility and the authority to extend remote work for employees where it's going really well and where the work that they perform doesn't have to necessarily occur on campus. But again, it can't impede university functions. We still have our jobs to do and the people that we need to serve. But if a supervisor and employee can talk together and can identify a temporary remote work from home agreement, those agreements could be for a short period of time. Maybe you just need that agreement to last until August 1st, but it could also last until December 31st of this year.
Of 2020. Thank you, Linda. What guidance would you give to managers of non-student facing offices where all work can be done remotely, who have pressured employees to return to campus starting June 8, only to sit isolated in closed offices and meet via Teams, both of which could be done in a more safe environment from home? Are UVU employees here to be seen or to do work? What is our goal as a supervisor with balancing working from home with time working on campus? Should we be trying to have people spend more time working on campus than at home, or vice versa? So there's a little bit of overlap with the previous question.
It is. And this isn't a one-size-fits-all response because there's such a diversity in the work that our staff do for the university. So while there's not a one-size-fits-all response, there is guidance. So Human Resources has provided materials for people managers, including training and a guidebook. They're all available on UVU's Return to Campus website. This guidebook provides great information and a variety of resources to assist those supervisors who are struggling this, how do I balance my employees? How do I balance the work that needs to be done? And as this guide indicates, if an employee's job and your department division return to work plan allows for continued remote work, the employee request can be granted and their work can be done remotely and not impede our functions. The supervisor can authorize a remote work agreement by submitting that through the temporary remote work agreement site that's out on UVU Human Resources.
Okay. Next question. I am an advisor and have been working from home since the 1st of March. It's been fantastic and I am able to connect with my students and other advisors easily. I'm in a high-risk age group and I filled out a work-at-home order and it says it goes through December 31, 2020. I have been told that I will need to return in July. If UVU is so concerned with faculty and students in being able to continue to work and learn remotely, then I feel that staff should be given that same accommodation. What will happen for those of us who are high risk?
High-risk employees, we're very concerned about you. Again, HR has provided some great resources for you that's available on the Return to Campus website, also available on the COVID-19 Employee Guide, FAQ website. And I'm so appreciative of those on my team who've kept that website and that information up to date, and those around campus that have supported that. Again, supervisors have the authority to grant continued remote work or alternative work schedules that won't disrupt the essential job functions. If supervisors are unable to work something out for a high-risk employee, they can then reach out to Human Resources and start an interactive process to determine what can be done to help them so that we're assuring that our high-risk employees are cared for.
So in all of these, supervisors and people managers really have a critical role to play. We cannot overdo the communication and listening. So I just want to underline that. Who can we turn to if we feel our supervisors and AVPs are being very rigid and not helping us with flexible schedules, especially when we are pregnant, have young children at home, and are having difficulty finding childcare? Who can we turn to if our supervisors are not communicating at all with the staff and leaving us completely in the dark? I'm sorry I have to editorialize. I hope that supervisors who are not communicating at all with staff and leaving us completely in the dark, I hope you are fewer than 5 on this campus. I kind of worry that people are feeling their supervisors are leaving them in the dark. Linda.
Yes, so I would encourage supervisors, as you said, we cannot over communicate. And communicate doesn't mean just send out an email or text message. It means have a real conversation with our employees to understand their concerns, what they're worried about. We would like supervisors and employees to be talking, and if you feel like your supervisor's not communicating with you, please go up your chain of command. If that doesn't work, then please feel free to reach out to HR. If it's a child care issue, again, there are provisions provided through the FFCRA, the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, where Human Resources can help you identify specific leaves that have been provided through that act. So again, try to work with your supervisors. Supervisors, please reach out to your employees. But if you do hit a wall, supervisors or employees, please reach out to HR.
And the last question, Linda, is quite specific. Will UVU accept liability if employees return to work and get sick? If an employee must get medical care due to becoming sick, will the university pay for that? For part-time and student employees not covered by insurance, will they receive any assistance if they end up needing medical care or are hospitalized from contracting COVID-19 at work?
So if an employee believes that they contracted COVID-19 at work, they can file a workers' compensation claim, and that claim will be investigated for coverage eligibility.
All right. Thank you, Linda, for the very helpful answers to these many thorny questions. I want to invite our provost, Wayne Vaught, to now join me here because many of the questions had to do with academic affairs. And you'll notice that there may be overlap as well with some of the questions asked about human resources. So Provost Vaught, welcome to our town hall. There's a lot of questions here for you, so let me start right away. We know that many classes would normally be taught face-to-face this fall are going to be taught online. What is being done to communicate this reality to students? Will upper administration be making any announcements in the near future about the absolute need to hold a significant portion of fall classes online?
Yes, we've been working over the past month with departmental chairs, with the deans of academic units. We've surveyed students to try to get a real sense of what student demands and needs are for the fall semester in terms of our classes. We will be offering a number of our classes in an online environment, but we will be continuing to offer a number of face-to-face. Probably around 40% of our courses this fall are going to be face-to-face. The remainder of the courses will either be online or in what we're having a live stream model, which will be similar to a face-to-face class. You'll meet at the same time, but you would meet remotely. So you just log in on your computer and you participate in the class that way. We've been working to get that information out. Students will be notified this week. Within the next couple of days, the schedules will be shifting, so students will be able to go online and see what teaching modality the specific course that they are registered in for the fall semester will be offered in. If there are any questions or concerns, we do ask students. We're not leaving you out on a lurch. What we want to know is, are you having questions or there problems or there challenges from that switch that will occur? And reach out to your academic advisor. And also call the Academic Continuity website or write to academiccontinuity@uvu.edu. That's our email address, which allows you to correspond with academic affairs, and we can try to address any questions that you might have regarding this transition.
That's a really critical piece of information. If you remember in March, as soon as COVID-19 hit, we set up this address, academiccontinuity@uvu.edu. What this does is simplify. There's one place to go when you are in doubt. It is an academic affairs matter, and that is being monitored, and you will get a response. So please use that. Next question, Wayne. I am a student at UVU. My concerns about COVID are high because of my age, and I am high risk. I'm taking classes online right now, but worry so much about keeping the guidelines suggested by healthcare providers when classes resume face-to-face. Not all the classes needed will be online, so face-to-face classes are inevitable. What are your plans in helping keep us safe? So this is the actual, in the classroom, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm. There will be a number of our classes that will be offered in a face-to-face format, though we're trying to offer similar courses in an online format. All of our courses this fall, whether they're face-to-face or strictly live streamed, will be live streamed and made available. So students who are in really high-risk categories who are in a face-to-face course will still be able to live stream and see that class. If you wish to go, and many of our students wish to be in classes, we've reduced the capacity of all of our classrooms in order to ensure social distancing, so you won't be sitting right next to each other as you have in the past. We're trying to ensure that there's the distancing that our health professionals have recommended. In addition to that, there will be sanitizers in each of the room that will allow students to clean their individual spaces. And while masks are highly recommended on most parts on campus, there will be many situations where those will be required use in our classrooms in order, again, to protect the health and safety of our students and our faculty and everyone as we resume instruction this fall.
Some of our face-to-face classes, in fact, resumed in May, on May 18. And so we already know what that has been like. And as Provost Vaught said, in some situations, the masks must be required, small classrooms, lab spaces, and things like that. During fall semester, there's usually a lot of travel for Thanksgiving. With it being so close to the end of term, will classes be held after the break, the Thanksgiving break, or will they be online only?
After the Thanksgiving break, we will shift to an all remote learning environment. And this is to prevent a risk of spread and transmission as people go home for the break and then return to campus. So talking with academic leaders, the department chairs and deans, we decided that after Thanksgiving, we'll just convert to all online.
Yes, and many other higher education institutions have adopted this practice. It's good practice, and it sort of cuts the risk of people having traveled to so many places and returning here and bringing the virus with them. I think that's welcome news for most of us. Other USHE institutions are planning a return to face-to-face instruction in the fall. I've been told UVU will do this very partially. Are we being vested with a mission of becoming the online campus of USHE? I think that's a yes or no question. Do you know how many of your faculty will resist being forced into that mission?
That is not our mission. What we have talked about over the past several years is creating flexible course delivery options for our students. And we know that students persist and that they complete at a much higher rate when they have the option of taking both face-to-face and online course options. And that's what we're planning for the future. And we're really only looking at ever having around 30 to 35% of our courses in an online environment. So no, we are not looking to become and are not targeting ourselves to become the online institution for USHE. We will continue to be a dual enrollment, dual mission institution with both face-to-face and online options for our students.
Yes, and I think it's important to remember that the largest segment of growth in enrollment among our UVU students is that cohort that takes both face-to-face and online and remote. So that's where we are playing. We're not going to be the Western Governors University of USHE. Will there be additional training and support for faculty who want to use the online or synchronous live stream method of delivery?
Absolutely. The Office of Teaching and Learning has really ramped up opportunities for education and trainings this summer. And so if you need additional training and would like additional training for online delivery, I encourage you to contact our Office of Teaching and Learning, and they can help you identify resources that will make your courses successful this fall. And it's one thing actually to point out to students. I know that what happened this past spring to institutions across the country was a sudden shift to a largely online environment. And while you may see some online courses this fall, please understand that your faculty are preparing for what we anticipate is going to happen this fall, unlike the way we were able to prepare as effectively in the spring. So it's going to be a quality educational experience, whether you're taking a course online, whether it's live streaming, whether it's face-to-face. We're doing everything to ensure that you're getting a quality educational experience, but one that's also very cognizant of protecting your health and safety while you're here on campus.
Do you want to say something to Wayne about the investments we're making in the classroom in terms of technology? Because I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Understand that in order to broadcast our courses and ensure that all students, because there are going to be situations if you're in a face-to-face course and you have to quarantine or you are diagnosed with COVID, we don't want you coming on campus, but we also don't want you missing out on the curricular experience that you would have. So we're outfitting all of our classrooms right now with the update cameras and technologies that will allow us to effectively get that course transmitted and live streamed right to wherever you are, so that you can have the educational experience that you're paying for here at UVU this fall.
All right, and a final question to our provost. Staff in academic affairs have lacked a sense of leadership and continuity. We are being told to ask our directors and supervisors. They tell us something, but then they are told by a dean or department chair something else. I know academic affairs is focused on faculty, but staff need to be considered, as we often have endless face-to-face interactions with multiple students and other staff throughout the day.
We'll absolutely be reaching out and making sure that all of our chairs and our supervisors and our deans are consistently communicating. There are a variety of different work situations and environments at UVU. Faculty and staff, some of them absolutely need to be on campus to deal with students here on campus. Some of them have opportunities for remote work. And so working with your supervisor to be sure that you're getting the proper messaging is something that is a priority for us. Again, if you have any questions or problems that pop up regarding this matter, contact us again at Academic Continuity at UVU EDU, and we'll look into it. But we're asking, as with one of the previous questions when you were talking with Linda, we absolutely need all of our supervisors, all of our associate deans and our deans to effectively and consistently communicate with both faculty and staff as to what their expectations are as they come back to campus in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much, Wayne. We will let you go. Thank you for
so
answering
much.
these questions. I'd like to invite Vice President Val Peterson to join me now. Welcome, Val. I know I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure we still are able to answer the remaining questions. We can't answer everything, but we'll do our best. So, Val, there are a few questions here for finance and administration. What will happen if someone tests positive and they've been working on campus in an area with other employees?
Thanks, President. First of all, we want to make sure that we make sure all of our employees are safe, and so we're going to follow CDC guidelines. We're going to follow the health department for the state of Utah's guidelines, and what those say are that if we have somebody that tests positive, we're going to inform them. We're going to ask them to isolate for the next 14 days, make sure they get tested after they have recovered. And then we're going to contact all the people who have had a lot of contact with them around them. We're going to ask them to quarantine for 14 days and also make sure that they are tested. So then from there, we will work with the Utah County Health Department to make sure that we have contact and tracing going on, so that we're making sure that the people who have had contact with that person who has tested positive, that we're letting them know that they have had contact with somebody who's tested positive. So we'll go through those proper procedures which have been set up that we've already utilized here on campus and that we're utilizing throughout the state.
Thank you, Val. Next question. The university has highly recommended the wearing of masks and provided a reusable mask to employees on campus. Thank you. However, there has been no indication that the wearing of face masks will be enforced. Will areas that have a lot of interpersonal communication and interaction, for example, tutoring labs and other support services, be allowed to require patrons to wear masks, use hand sanitizer, and possibly have a forehead temperature check? Why are some departments making masks mandatory when the school is not?
Thanks, President. So first of all, in our return to the campus procedures, we've said that we expect employees to wear masks. And so that's the first thing, is we expect employees to be wearing their masks. The second thing is that we have a lot of different situations that are happening across campus. In fact, we have some face-to-face classes that are happening right now, and we've required those students and instructors to actually wear masks right now. And so depending upon what your situation is, what the environment is, what the size of the room is, we will have areas on campus that we will require people to wear masks. And so, like I said, the underlying theme for all of this is we want to make sure our employees are safe, our students and our faculty and staff are all safe, And so we want to make sure that we're all taking exceptional care for each other. And one of the best ways we can do that, all of us, is to wear masks where we really show respect for one another, that we're trying to watch out for each other's health.
And I think it wouldn't be rude to offer a hand sanitizer to someone who walks up to your desk. I've been in a dentist's office. I've been in other places here in the county where the minute I walk in, they took my forehead, my temperature, and then offered me a hand sanitizer. I think it's a balancing of our exceptional care and exceptional accountability. And I really think that these are things we can vocalize and ask one another politely to do throughout the campus. Next question. At what point will the rise in reported COVID-19 cases cause UVU administration to return to level orange and close campus again? Would UVU return to level orange even if Utah stays on level yellow in order to keep the economy running? Why are we opening campus again when cases of the virus are still going up? The safety measures put in place help, but it is stressful to be around others who may be sick or are not following the guidelines. Is there a possibility of campus closing again this summer or in the fall or next spring?
I appreciate the question. First of all, I just want everybody to know that since March 14th through June the 1st, we met every day, every work day on COVID-19 task force. The president leading that as we discussed what was going on in the state and what was happening. Since that time, we've actually met every other day, and we review the numbers that are happening throughout the state. I know Robin today has already gone through some of the different numbers, and there's 4 key factors as we look at those. Those are how many people have contracted the virus, how many people are hospitalized, how many are utilizing ICU, and then how many are having what our transmission rate is for the virus. And so we keep track of all those factors. And Utah County has been pretty steady as you look at those numbers. We review those numbers. Today there was 65 cases in Utah County. Yesterday there was 57, and the day before that there were 47. And if you really look at the state as a whole, there's been a jump, obviously, since we went to yellow, but also there was a real jump because of some cases that happened up north. And there was a meat packing plant there that had the virus contracted, and they had a lot of workers who got ill. And so we look at where those cases are happening. We take those case by case basis. And so we would do that in this event as well, that currently we're yellow. If our cases spiked in Utah County, if we saw that we had an issue on campus where we were having tremendous transmission, then we would evaluate that and we would decide what the best course of action is to make sure our employees are staying safe. So I do think that we're making sure that we're using exceptional care as we're working through this pandemic.
Finally, this is a very specific question. How many UVU employees have gotten sick with COVID-19?
So first of all, let me say there is a procedure on campus for people to report if they've had positive contact with COVID-19 or if they've been tested. And so that happens through our Human Resource Office. We have had 120 people who've actually filed a form and said that they either had contact with COVID-19 or they've had some issues. Of those tested, we've had 10 cases on campus. And so if you work that out, that's 0.002 of our employees. Now, obviously, that's a self-reporting mechanism. And just let me say with that in the state of Utah, of those who are tested, that 5.5% currently are having a positive test. So our number is much smaller than that, but even if you take the statewide number, our test results are fairly low.
Okay. Thank you, Val. There are a few more questions that I would like to answer. There are 3, so we may run a couple of minutes over time, but I think these are important questions. I'm just going to read this next question verbatim. While I'm happy that people got to work from home, good for them, what about us people that worked every day on campus while everybody was being home? I think the usual attaboy is not very good relations with the employees that were here working. Why not something that shows we are needed and wanted instead of good job but thanks for nothing? Why do some departments like the warehouse get ignored despite not having rested and had to work hard during the pandemic? You do not even mention their exceptional work. Actually, the last two questions, I combined them into the first longer question. And I think I do hear the feeling that people were not seen, that people were not appreciated, that people were not recognized. So let me begin by saying, what have we done as a community and a university? First, we paid salaries for 2 months for those employees who could not do their work on campus or at home. We did that deliberately because we didn't want the dislocation that being laid off or furloughed would entail. So we paid those salaries for 2 months. We did spot awards. Our money is limited. We did spot awards to allow people, managers, to say, this person, that person really did an exceptional job above and beyond what's expected of them. So those spot awards are important. Some people on campus did double duty with little extra compensation, and I was on campus almost the whole time in the past few months, along with my other colleagues. Some token of appreciations have been intangible. So our students named 873 staff and faculty in a survey that we did April 6 to 9. We couldn't give a lot of money to these people, but we sent a letter of appreciation and a small gift card for the bookstore. So that may be more intangible, but that is a recognition that you were mentioned by name by our students. We rely very much on our people managers to exercise exceptional care. And my message is that today, whatever our resources are, whether it's a kind word or I know that with our custodial staff who've worked super hard, we've been able to do some meals and snacks. And those are very small. I understand that. But we need to understand that it kind of falls on each of us to say, given limited resources, what can we do to really see people and what they're doing? What are the languages of appreciation that are possible and doable? And I also want to advise us to, if we can, to not think so much about, who's ahead and why. In a sense, this pandemic is really showing us that this boat is one where we are just all in. And there is never 100% scientific way to say that every action gets a reward, but please know that from the perspective of leadership, we are proud of, I think, what we have done as a community, and we appreciate all of you who have worked so hard. The second question that I want to answer is, it's a little long, but I'll read it. Why are staff being asked to return to campus during summer when students and faculty are not going to be here and may not even be here in the fall? I'm deeply concerned about my health and safety until the pandemic numbers begin to flatten considerably in Utah and Utah County for a lengthy period of time. Based on all the communication by UVU's administration, it has been stated over and over that protecting the health and safety of everyone is a top priority. It's also been stated that anyone who can complete their responsibilities remotely should continue to do so. However, many of us have been told by our supervisors that there must be a presence on campus and that if we wish to seek continued approval for remote work, we are required to work with HR and submit appropriate documentation to warrant such a request. Why is it not possible to simply approve remote work through December 2020 based on the stated facts? So I will repeat a few of the things maybe that Vice President Linda Macon has already said. First is safety comes first. We are very serious about that. This occupies the conversations and thoughts and decisions of the cabinet, of our senior leaders in the University Executive Council. We also understand the value of remote work, and we have seen that, in fact, that's more possible than before March. The stated facts, however, also say that Utah was reopening, and with the guidance that we received, it was okay. We felt that it was a rational and a good decision to start bringing people back to campus, that there was a level of safety in place. In fact, we did not open, and we knew we would not open campus, for example, until masks, the shipment of masks, had been completed. There's extra cleaning, extra ventilation, sanitizers, etc. And as we heard from Robin today, we are tracking data, and we are prepared to make changes when necessary. We are prepared to be flexible. Flexibility is a word that we will all have to focus on and apply in the decisions that we make going forward. Every division was asked to make their own back to campus plan. and we have been emphasizing direct communication between supervisors and their teams. By the way, there isn't a uniform attitude. Some staff have wanted to come back. Even staff who were for the July return are back. Some students have wanted to be back. Some are definitely rightly concerned and worried. And so if you know that your situation is different, you have a concern, please express that. We only grow in professionalism and care and accountability as we really and truly communicate what our concerns are to one another. There is no policy that we must return to campus at all costs. There is variation by jobs, by the services required, and so on. And then I want to thank those who never left campus. Some of those are our custodial staff. Some of those are my cabinet members who never left campus. But within my cabinet, there's flexibility. I have one member of cabinet whose family is high risk. He has a pregnant daughter, and he continues to work remotely. The final question, if you could hang on for one more minute, is continued remote work encouraged or discouraged? Will remote work be an option after the year 2020 and even when the pandemic is over? Is extending your temporary remote work agreement only for high-risk employees, or can any employee extend their agreement? And this question is followed by a long context by the person who asked the question. He or she really loves working remotely, and it is in fact very productive. So a few things worth mentioning on remote work. Yes, there will be more permanent remote work, but we cannot do this haphazardly. We need to do this systematically and with some rigor and strategically. We will have to reconfigure some of our space. I worked for a tech company before coming here. All we had were hot desks. Even the most important general managers of big countries, all we had was hot desking. We will have to reconfigure some of our space. We are not going to be 100% online, and that's not what we want to be because of the people we serve. We know that first-generation students, less prepared students, and other types of students do want face-to-face and a full university experience. We need to have exceptional accountability. We need to have high trust to make remote work work. And therefore, that means, again, a lot of communication, a lot of transparency, and we need the right technology as well. So the reason that tech companies could go all remote is their technology is pretty amazing. And then at the end of the day, we each must exercise judgment. Sometimes we need to be on campus, we need to know when that is, and we need to be here. So I want to close with a thought that, from the cabinet offsite yesterday and today, we learned this phrase, harnessing uncertainty. Prior to this, I'd always thought about uncertainty as something we navigate. We simply navigate the waters. To harness is something different. To harness the wind, you can get wind power. Harness the sun, you get solar power. So if we could remember this phrase, harnessing uncertainty, because uncertainty is our current normal and will be the normal of the coming months. How do we harness this to communicate better, to support one another better, to listen to one another's fears and uncertainties? It's okay. We are here to support you. This leadership is committed. I want to thank you again, and I hope to see more of you participate at the next town hall Talk with Tuminas. Thank you so much for being part of this community. Go Wolverines!